the world who really don't understand. Freedom has many difficulties, but we have never had to put a wall up to keep our people in.
Welcome, everybody, to the Leo Zagami Show with Leo and Christy, Saturday, February 15th, year of the Lord 2025. Here we are with another show, another podcast, our MAGA counter cognitive warfare. Okay, so here we are, and today the subject is very interesting because yesterday we have absolutely witnessed a turning point in the history that connects the European Union and the United States of America, or Europe in general, after the Second World War, which has always had a very special relationship with America. But now, of course, Europe is not respecting those values of free speech, of freedom of expression that characterize democracies. And that's why J.D. Vance did a wonderful speech, which I fully support, also because I was myself a victim of what is going on in Europe for the last few decades, this increasing censorship. And in the end, as you know, I had to flee Italy in May 2019 with my wife and give up last year formally my Italian European citizenship to continue doing my work as an author and a journalist. I really held in high esteem the American Constitution, and in particular the First Amendment that makes us different. And today we're going to see how these Europeans have a really distorted vision of democracy and of freedom of speech. Christy, how was your week?
It was good. I was doing shows all week with you.
That's true. We have done extra shows this week. From next week, we are back to 2 shows a week because we have an extra sponsor for our middle of the week show, let's say, and then we have a Saturday show. And of course, it's the moment of thanking our sponsors. First of all, Christy, who are our sponsors today?
Malgorzata Minta and Daniel Estes.
And of course, Dr. Faro.
Dr. Pharaoh.
Yes, Dr. Pharaoh, guys, with his great supplements, who have really saved my life. As you know, I have been unfortunately in bed for a week with bronchopneumonia.
The week before last.
Yes, but I came back stronger than before thanks to these supplements. They are called Buona Vita. Buona Vita, you can find more about them.
And I never got sick, so
because you took.
I was taking them right away. So
okay, so a lot of people ask us how we can get these products. They are very special supplements made out of organic ingredients of great quality, and Dr. Pharaoh is old school, so he actually prefers you to call in. This is actually the website. As you can see, there is a phone number. The phone number is 863-676-2225, and you can also, of course, visit him. Excellence in Medicine, Dr. Anthony E. Pharaoh. He's our sponsor, our main sponsor for our Saturday show. And Christy, you have a favorite, which is this one. Yes,
the strawberry
the
one.
Strawberry one. Let's talk about these products, in particular the strawberry one, which you seem to like very much. It has some fantastic ingredients. So let me show to our public what are these ingredients. And of course, thank you so much for tuning in. We see that there is more and more people that are tuning in for our live show. There's probably going to be thousands watching this show in the coming hours, also on band.video and on the other platforms, BitChute and other platforms which we upload the show later on. At the moment, we are broadcasting live on Facebook, broadcasting live on YouTube, on X, and Rumble. So here we are. Let me show our viewers this fantastic product, which, as you can see, is fueled with good stuff. Powerful antioxidant benefits, improves immune function, balanced superfood blend, no added sugar, enzymes, probiotics, and fiber for digestions, over 10 certified organic foods, no stimulants or caffeine. It's used for to detoxification, yes, of our body, and also to alkalize our body and balance our pH, which is very important, especially if, like me, you suffer of kidney stones. So please keep in mind that Dr. Pharaoh doesn't have an online shop. He just wants you to call him. And he has also a fantastic patient center with a lot of services and techniques that are available: chiropractic care, functional medicine, massage therapy, spinal decompression, and many other things. So if you are actually in Florida, I would suggest you go and visit him. And now let's start with today's show. Like I said, yesterday was an historic day. I wrote an article that you can find on leozagami.com. Let me show our viewers the article, which talks about this historical speech given by J.D. Vance, fully endorsed also by our president, of course, Trump, who has endorsed his speech because there was a lot of criticism in Europe, and so Trump had to intervene and say, I fully endorse this speech by J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance finally exposes the UK and European technocrats directed by Davos. He actually mentions Davos at one point over the censorship and lack of democracy. This was so refreshing. I mean, like I wrote in this article, in May 2019, I had to leave everything I own back in Europe and relocate to the United States with my wife. I did it to avoid being arrested for simply exposing the truth about the Jesuit Sabbatean control New World Order in my books and in my articles and social media posts, which made the corrupt Italian judiciary and police bankrupt me. locked me up on more than an occasion, and finally forced me to leave Italy for good or risk being arrested, having my passport taken from me. So today, that's yesterday, I'm still the subject of judiciary stalking from the Italian authorities. Just a month ago, they went and visited, a month and a half ago, my mother and interrogated her. So this means there is no freedom in Italy. And I was particularly happy when yesterday, Vice President J.D. Vance, somebody I voted for along with our beloved President Donald J. Trump, used his first major speech on the international stage at the Munich Security Conference to criticize European leaders for retreating from fundamental values like free speech, which stand at the core of Western democracies, and values that were up until not so long ago shared values, but that doesn't seem to be the case any longer. So I want to show you a brief, but I think a key passage of J.D. Vance's speech, and then today the reactions from Zelensky, who is so desperate, guys, that he's really, I mean,
desperate.
He looks desperate and he talks desperate. But there is a lot that we're going to be discussing today on the Leo Zagami Show. If you want to also become sponsors of the Leo Zagami Show, you can do it through our GoFundMe or Cash App handle that you can find at leozagami.com. Let me put it here on the screen, the donation in support of our show. We are, of course, also supported by our readers. As you know,
Yes.
we have a bunch of books. In particular, I will suggest this book and volume 9 in regards to the subject that we are touching today. So just keep that in mind. And at this point, I have a few things that I have to sort out here, technically speaking, but let me show you that specific clip from J.D. Vance, which I find refreshing, and also it finally makes the European realize that they are not that beacon of freedom they maybe thought they were in their heads. They are far from it. And J.D. Vance had really shredded in pieces the EU elites and their technocrats present in Munich.
Political leaders who promised to put an end to out-of-control migration. Now, I happen to agree with a lot of these concerns, but you don't have to agree with me. I just think that people care about their homes, they care about their dreams, they care about their safety and their capacity to provide for themselves and their children. And they're smart. I think this is one of the most important things I've learned in my brief time in politics. Contrary to what you might hear a couple mountains over in Davos, the citizens of all of our nations don't generally think of themselves as educated animals.
A couple of mountains over in Davos. That was really a great moment for me when he said that, because as you know, I have explained in volume 7 of my Confessions, in particular, how the EU is becoming the Fourth Reich that Klaus Schwab and his friends are creating with their fourth industrial revolution and their great reset, which will lead us to 2030, in which we will own nothing and be happy. That's what he says, of course. But let's hear more from J.D. Vance.
Interchangeable cogs of a global economy. And it's hardly surprising that they don't want to be shuffled about or relentlessly ignored by their leaders. And it is the business of democracy to adjudicate these big questions at the ballot box. I believe that dismissing people, dismissing their concerns, or worse yet, shutting down media, shutting down elections, or shutting people out of the political process protects nothing. In fact, it is the most surefire way to destroy democracy. And speaking up and expressing opinions isn't election interference. even when people express views outside your own country, and even when those people are very influential. And trust me, I say this with all humor, if American democracy can survive 10 years of Greta Thunberg scolding, you guys can survive a few months of Elon Musk. But what no democracy, American, German, or European, will survive is telling millions of voters that their thoughts and concerns, their aspirations, their pleas for relief are invalid or unworthy of even being considered. Democracy rests on the sacred principle that the voice of the people matters. There's no room for firewalls.
There's no room for firewalls. There's no room for creating their own form of democracy, which means accepting only their ideology of choice, their leftist, in this case, ideology of choice. But there was also another passage from J.D. Vance's speech, which was particularly significant, and I think that this was the moment in which the Europeans really lost it, and the Germans in particular, because as you know, guys, there is already been a lot of criticism towards Elon Musk for, they say, interfering with the elections by giving a lot of space on his platform to the leader of Alternative for Deutschland. We are close, very close to the German elections, and of course, they are fearing the rise of this new right, which in a way it's turning away from all their supposed values, which are really inexistent and have led Germany and the rest of Europe to become more and more invaded, literally invaded by all these Islamists who are, like we saw the other day in Munich, just a few hours from the conference, a guy injured more than 30 people, this Afghani guy, who himself, of course, hated the German way of life. And he actually was supposed to leave the country because they have actually, he had a legal procedure to leave the country, but he didn't leave the country. Instead, he killed at least one person and injured several others. But this was, I think, the moment really the Europeans lost it, when J.D. Vance attacked both Europe and, of course, also the United Kingdom, because United Kingdom, regardless of Brexit, is still in the hands of the globalists.
I worry the most about vis-a-vis Europe is not Russia, it's not China, it's not any other external actor. And what I worry about is the threat from within, the retreat of Europe from some of its most fundamental values, values shared with the United States of America. Now, I was struck that a former European commissioner went on television recently and sounded delighted that the Romanian government had just annulled an entire election. He warned that if things don't go to plan, the very same thing could happen in Germany too. Now, these cavalier statements are shocking to American ears. For years, we've been told that everything we fund and support is in the name of our shared democratic values. Everything from our Ukraine policy to digital censorship is billed as a defense of democracy. But when we see European courts canceling elections and senior officials threatening to cancel others, we ought to ask whether we're holding ourselves to an appropriately high standard. And I say ourselves because I fundamentally believe that we are on the same team.
Well, we used to be at least on the same team. I strongly advise you to read my article on leozagami.com that talks about this historical speech by J.D. Vance. And now let's go into the reaction from these globalist puppets. We start, of course, with the German Chancellor himself, because the German Chancellor himself used to be a Stasi agent. He is a guy who, of course, has leftist values and supports the Ukraine war. but this is being detrimental for his own country, who was relying probably way too much on the fossil fuels from Russia, as once Trump said, even if he was scourged and derided when he said that. Now the Germans are not laughing anymore, and they are a country in profound crisis. But these were the questions to Olaf Scholz in Munich.
Herr Bundeskanzler, vielen Dank. Wir machen jetzt auf Englisch weiter.
Thank you, Federal Chancellor. We'll continue on in English.
Of The Economist. Thank you for your very robust comments, powerful comments. I want to start with your comments about the Vice President's speech yesterday. You said you pushed back powerfully, as have other German politicians, and you've said Germany won't accept when outsiders interfere in German elections. But
Germany will not accept. Let's remind the Germans where they come from. They were actually from 1945 onwards under the direct control of the Allied forces, because they had to avoid the regathering of a Nazi mentality. Now they are no longer Nazis, but they're not that much better, because you're going to see now what their chancellor says. Their version of free speech, of democracy, is completely twisted and perverse, because they don't want to include in any way, shape, or form people like Alternative for Deutschland or anybody who thinks in another way. This is not democracy. This is a one-way, it's a one-word ideology.
Our way or no way.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Trump yesterday called the speech brilliant and said he agreed with it. What are the consequences for US-German relations when the American president and vice president have such a categorically different view of European democracy than you do?
I think it's important that we understand that Germany is a very strong democracy. And as a strong democracy,
that strong democracy, that's a complete lie.
We are absolutely clear that the extreme right should be out of political control and out of political decision-making processes, and that there will be no cooperation with them. And we really reject any idea. We really reject any idea of cooperation between parties, other parties, and these extreme right parties. I think there is a...
So what kind of democracy? You reject any form of collaboration, you reject hearing the other side. And in fact, J.D. Vance yesterday said, you have not invited the other representatives who are actually representing a good chunk of the German people to this event. Why didn't you invite also the other voices? This is really why Europe is in decline, because they are completely brainwashed and they believe that their way is the only way.
Strong consensus between all relevant parties in Germany that they won't do so. I hope this will last and continue, but it is absolutely sure and necessary to say it is not others to give us the advice to cooperate with these parties which we are not working with for good reasons, especially when looking to the history of our country.
Do you think there was anything in the Vice President's speech worth reflecting on?
You mean all this very relevant as discussions about Ukraine and security in Europe?
And they laugh. They laugh.
Oh,
I mean, they laugh. I mean, this is just insane. Guys, remember, this is the Leo Zagami show. Let me put here on the screen our GoFundMe. And we want to thank, of course, our main sponsor, Dr. Faro, and his products, Buona Vita, which are great supplements, much better than what you get anywhere else, guys. Anywhere else, trust me. These are supplements that are made with products that are really quality products, organic products, something that doesn't happen with other, let's say, other people. We don't want to specify who. By the way, it would be interesting to understand why this Scholz insists in criticizing J.D. Vance when he has a very, I mean, he's in total crisis. I mean, he it's not like at the moment everybody in Germany loves Scholz and he has the support. Like J.D. Vance said yesterday, they have a very weak popular support. They don't have a democratic mandate that you can actually say, wow. They hardly have a mandate, these people, but they have the courage to criticize Trump, who has won the elections and has a very strong mandate. This guy is really bad news for Germany, and I hope that the elections will bring in something new. Though, I mean, the German system is probably rigged, and I doubt they will have a complete, change.
Necessary that we change the view we have to these questions since many years. It will be absolutely impossible to finance 2% and even more without changing the debt regulation we have in Germany. It is impossible.
They have rules. They have rules for that, for this, for that.
You are not attacking others in ways that are against
this. Let's see his view of free speech. Let's see. Let's see his view of free speech, because this is really something that is pretty scary.
I think you've answered my question, but I mean it somewhat seriously. Was there anything in that speech which was a broadside against many aspects of Europe that you think is criticism worth reflecting on?
I think, aside of the questions we are discussing here, we should be very clear that free speech in Europe means that you are not attacking others in ways that are against legislation and laws we have in our country. And that's the case. There is no difference between the digital world and the analog world, to say it like this. And we have to be very clear that hate and all this, which is so bad for our societies, should be not the reality of public debate.
So you are basically limiting free speech. You are saying that you're limiting.
That's not free speech.
The Germans are always Germans. Now, I hope that Alternative for Deutschland can change Germany, but this is really, I mean, when I see this kind of thing, it reminds me of what happened to me in Italy. The fact that as soon as I started to enter the political arena, they attacked me left, right, and center. They even arrested me, tortured me, did all kinds of things. But they, always keep the moral high ground because they are better.
I mean, yeah.
Turn to the subjects that I think you hoped the Vice President would address yesterday. Let's turn first to actually defense spending.
So, defense spending. Are you going to spend more money or not, Schultz?
Which you made some very strong points just now about what you thought needed to be the scale of defense spending and what needed to change in Germany in order to pay for it, particularly the debt brake.
Well, I mean, without going into all the details of the internal economic policies of Germany, let's go to more of this opposition to J.D. Vance and his historical speech. The opposition from people who are really, it was like Davos. It was no different from Davos. Ukraine and Germany remind me really of some kind of, I mean, look at them together signing deals on their refugees and collaboration. So basically, Germany is having an election in a few days, and these people are signing deals, and here they are. I mean, how short is Zelensky and how short is Scholz?
Thank you very much.
Nazi Ukraine and Nazi Germany. Wow. They call the Alternative for Deutschland the right wing, the Nazis, but the real Nazis are somewhere else. And in fact, among the people present in Munich, there was, of course, other politicians that, like the future, some say the future chancellor, who is apparently like Angela Merkel's pupil. He was also there, and he is somebody who has criticized openly Elon Musk. Said that, saying even that he will punish Elon Musk once he's in power. So imagine this. I mean, these people are really insane. One worse than the other.
Sarska, I'm the chair of the Warsaw Security Forum, and I am delighted to invite you to the next panel discussion entitled Security Dividend, European Support for Ukraine. I would like now to ask my distinguished panel to join me here. First and foremost, President Petr Pavel, the President of the Czech Republic.
Now, President Pavel of the Czech Republic is a socialist who has given a new course, an anti-populist course to his country, just so you understand what kind of character this guy is. I have collected an article here just to explain you how happy they were after his election, saying that, of course, with this new president, they are changing their foreign policy. They're changing the way the Czech Republic is. Czech president-elect turns the page on populism. So no more populism, while the rest of the world, and especially America, is embracing Trumpism, which is, of course, a form of populism. The Czech president-elect turned the page on populism, and he is a globalist Davos creature, absolutely.
Will this be, you said, and you said there was a majority in this country after the election.
Well, no, that is Scholz. So let's leave him out. Let's leave him out. We had enough of him. Here is
President
the global.
Pavel.
One globalist puppet after the other, they all go on stage and they all, of course, criticize Trump. But like I said before, the guy who probably is going to be the next chancellor, because the CDU is still the main party in Germany, is the worst of these puppets. And I would like you to hear him, because this guy is really evil.
A peace in Ukraine, and of course, a defeat of Russia.
So first of all, many thanks for your compliment. But there are still 60 million voters between you and me, so...
Yeah, so they already said that basically that he was already the prime minister, no? So Friedrich Merz is the member at the moment of the German Bundestag, and Friedrich Merz is the leader of the Christian Democratic Union and the pupil of Angela Merkel, which was herself a former Stasi agent, turned then Christian Democrat, nuclear physicist, who, of course, dominated Germany for over 20 years. And she was the most hideous politician. But her pupil is not much better.
Itself guarantee a good result, or the result we would like to see, but it provides a foundation for us to be part also of the long-term solution in this. I think that is important.
This is another globalist. I mean, let's move further to that guy, which is German guy.
A peace in Europe, a peace in Ukraine, and of course, a defeat of Russia.
So first of all, many thanks for your compliment. But there are still 60 million voters between you and me, so... if you allow, I would like to set up the bigger framework we are working in, actually, and there is an elephant in the room here, and the elephant is the transatlantic relationship. And I think I should give some brief comments on what we have heard yesterday and today on our relationship. My first comment goes to the outcome of the elections. We respect the presidential elections and the congressional elections in the US, and we expect the US to do the same here. My second comment goes to our shared values and shared powers. We stick to the rules which are given by our democratic institutions. This includes our own legal approach to deal with, for example, published information and opinions. Free speech remains free speech and remains part of our open democratic society.
But then there is always a but.
But fake news, hate speech, and offenses.
Yeah, sure. And who decides what are offenses and fake news?
Remain subject to legal restraints and control by independent courts.
Yeah, sure. Independent courts, there's no such thing as independent courts in Europe. There are a bunch of leftist courts that have nothing of independent, guys.
I should say that in front of the events which took place in DC yesterday, we would never kick out a news agency out of the press room of our
Now, for those who don't know, the Associated Press has been kicked out of the Oval Office and the White House because they are, of course, anti-Trumpian. They didn't want to accept the change of the name Gulf of America from Gulf of Mexico. And in the end, the White House is free to decide who they want to let in their press room or not. No? So this guy from Germany, instead, he thinks he is the guy who is guaranteeing us all the freedom. This guy is the new leader of the European Fourth Reich. Remember this.
And our legal framework in the European Union is and remains valid for all private persons and private companies doing business in Europe, independently from where they come from and where their headquarters are based. We look for close cooperation with the Trump administration and with the American market, and we strongly believe in free trade, open markets, and that's the reason why we would like to see tariffs brought down to zero as fast as possible. We don't believe in trade conflicts or even trade wars. And my last comment goes to the foreign security policy. We know that we have to catch up quickly our expenses on defense.
Now let me show you a second this guy, what he has actually done. Musk will face consequences, he says, for interfering in German election, says frontrunner Merz. And they say the next German government response could be political, legal, or possibly target Musk gigafactory near Berlin, center-right leader says in interview. This guy is more than center-right, a true Nazi. Forget the guys from Alternative for Deutschland. Welcome to the Leo Zagami show, where we are, of course, commenting on the reactions from the various European leaders on what J.D. Vance has stated yesterday in an historical speech, which was followed also by a brief meeting with Zelensky. Zelensky, who, when he talks to the Europeans, as you will see in a moment, he seems to make himself all grand, but when he talks to J.D. Vance, so Trump, he seems a little weasel. Check this out.
Good afternoon, everybody. We're, of course, happy to welcome the Ukrainian delegation led by President Zelensky. We had a number of fruitful conversations, a number of things for us to follow up and work on. And fundamentally, the goal is, as President Trump outlined it, we want the war to come to a close. We want the killing to stop, but we want to achieve a durable, lasting peace, not the kind of peace that's going to have Eastern Europe in conflict just a couple years down the road. So we had a number of good conversations about how we might accomplish that together, and certainly we'll have many more in the days, weeks, and months to come. President Zelensky.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Very briefly, I think Vice President said everything absolutely correct. We are very thankful for American support. President Trump, we have good conversation today. Our first meeting, not last, I'm sure, and really what we need to speak more, to work more, and to prepare the plan how to stop Putin and finish the war. We want peace very much, but we need real security guarantees, and we will continue our meetings and our work, and we will be very happy to see General Kellogg also.
The general who was there next to Marco Rubio. We're gonna hear from him in a second at the Munich Security Conference.
Thank you, Vice President, for meeting. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you all. Take care, guys.
How does this move forward if Ukraine is not ready to come to the table with Putin? If Ukraine is not ready to speak with Putin at the table, how do you move forward? Will you still negotiate?
Well, look, I think the way that this conversation moves us forward is, first of all, you have great members of the Ukrainian delegation. You have our incredible Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, here. We have General Kellogg. It's important for us to get together and start to have the conversations that are going to be necessary to bring this thing to a close.
Okay, General Kellogg. And he actually is a great guy. Look what he said to these globalists there at the Munich Security Conference. I mean, of course, he's a minor figure compared to Hexet or J.D. Vance. But what he said when he debated these globalists was pretty much on the spot, because he's a general. He's there with Marco Rubio. And of course, he is working with the Trump administration to make America great again on the world stage, and getting these Europeans to understand we're not no longer paying for their hideous wars or favor them by... we are basically in a situation where I bought a General Motors Chevrolet car, for example, in 2013, and after 2 years they told me that in 2023 there will be no more spare parts. You remember? Mm-hmm. Because Chevrolet was no longer going to be sold in Italy. Yeah. And we have to buy all the German or Italian cars. That's hideous. And Trump, of course, has made this very clear. But let's hear what General Kellogg has said.
This war's been going on for 3 years. 3 years. Okay? Just 11 years, but we're talking 3 years with the Russian engagement. When they engaged, when you look at that, this is what happened when you had a president of the United States said minimal intervention may be okay. Now, the definition of minimal intervention is considerably different than mine. But tell me here, this audience, since you shouted it out, what did Russia do when President Trump was president of the United States? He did nothing. Nothing. He did it under President Bush. He did it under President Obama. He did it under President Biden. He didn't do anything under President Trump. And we've always worked that way because he leveled the playing field to do that. And I think that's where you look back and you say to people, well, how is America going to do this? How is it going to work? When we say peace through strength, that is originally an American term. And he's looked at it the same way. And so we have had the model, President Trump's had the model, that once we come up with a peace arrangement, a peace deal, then we were going to work and making sure that that's enforceable. It's a good deal. It's a fair deal. Go back to what President Trump said in his UN General Assembly. And I'm going back on history because, remember what the famous poet said, George Santana said, if you forget a history, be prepared to repeat it. Well, we basically go back to the first UN General Assembly speech. President Trump talked about America first. That's all people remember. The second half of that speech was about national sovereignty. And he talked about the sovereignty of nations. And he said quite clearly in that, if a nation fights for its sovereignty, we will be with you. And he's done that. So this is where I said the challenge is, When you say things like that, you put it on the negative, and I put it on the positive. That's there. The last 3 years, or 2 years, the previous administration, the concern that President Trump has, when you look at what happened in Ukraine, he says, well, I want to, we stop the killing. And the level of killing, and we all know this, you're at World War II level of death. When you look at the destruction, let's use a city, somebody made the comment of Mariupol. When you came out of there, that's a city the size of Denver, Colorado. It's the size of Atlanta, Georgia. It's destroyed. When you look at the amount of death and destruction within Ukraine, so which is massive, the level of destruction in Ukraine it's 3 times the amount of death for the Ukrainians alone that Americans suffered in the Korean War and the Vietnam War combined over 11 years. So my take on this is, if you think you can kill your way out of this war, you can't. Okay, it's not just killing alone. It's quite. You're going to have to have a comprehensive plan, a plan that has worked with the allies, working together, but it's going to be a comprehensive plan. I know I went over my time, and I got you on that one.
Of course, General Kellogg really did incredible and spot-on intervention in this, let's say, how you want to call it, reunion of globalist puppets and technocrats. But of course, today the special guest who had to criticize J.D. Vance and give his own speech like he's some kind of superhero was Zelensky. He was really more desperate than usual. Check him out. This is brief from his speech, and then we will check out also his interview with Amanpour, the globalist journalist.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Look at these idiots who then support him, all the Europeans, like he's the hero. Why don't you continue this war on your own then, and send your own children to die on the front against Russia? Because that's because that's going to happen if they continue like this.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your word. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your invitation. Dear ladies and gentlemen, at the start of conference, every country usually shares its stance, priorities, whether officially, openly, or through informal talks with journalists, with partners. And this year, a country that was not even invited still made its presence known. A country that everyone talks about here, not in a good way. The night before Munich this year, a Russian attack drone struck the sarcophagus covering the ruined fourth reactor of the Chernobyl nuclear.
And that's, of course, a false flag that the Ukrainians have put together so they could then, parade it in front of the Munich Security Conference. This is the explosion, is still very much a radioactive plant, even if it's not anymore in function. There is this big sarcophagus that has been created to protect for the next 100 years from the radiations that continue to emanate. And this was, of course, a way, I guess, for this midget turned politician, he used to be a comedian, to say, oh, the Russians are evil. But inside information says that it was actually the Ukrainians who got hold of a Russian drone, and they are number one in the drone production. He himself said it, that they have produced, imagine this, 1.5 million drones. They have built 1.5 million drones. Christy, you have something you want to say?
No, I was just my news.
Yeah, well, you have some news, local news, which is rather interesting. And so a break from the international news with Christie's latest local news, which sounds very interesting.
It's just the news from Palm Springs.
Yeah, well, what happened in Palm
from
Springs?
California.
Yes.
Well, the Palm Springs Police Department was in trouble this week because one of its officers was caught with political paraphernalia, which was, can you guess what it was? It was a Trump hat and a Trump wig, and he had it in his patrol car. Imagine, in Palm Springs.
That's not acceptable for the Palm Springs inhabitants. For this, 50% of Palm Springs is LGBT, and the other 50% is a bunch of old Democrat folks. Unfortunately,
I think it's pretty cool that somebody on the police department.
I'm a great supporter of the Palm Springs Police Department for that reason, but unfortunately, they have been criticized, and now they might be subject to a discipline action.
Well, yeah, they are. They're in trouble,
and
they had to take their hat out of their car and their wig, and they can't wear it, especially if they're
insane.
And then there's some immigrant groups in California. This was the news today. They're threatening to disrupt the ICE raids that are going to be happening in California. They said that they're going to surround and stop them.
Well, we know that Tom Woman is preparing massive raids in Los Angeles for the end of this month. So let's see what's going to happen. In the meantime, let's go back to the midget from Ukraine, who himself, I think that the most important passage was when Zelensky called for Europe to create an army against Russia. Whoa.
Have talked about Europe that needs its own military, an army of Europe. Everything needed to protect lives in modern war should be produced in Europe fully. Europe has everything it takes. Europe just needs to come together and start acting in a way that no one can say no to Europe. But America needs to see where Europe is heading. And this direction of European policy shouldn't just be promising, it should make America want to stand with a strong Europe. This isn't about replacing the alliance. This is about making Europe's contribution to our partnership equal to America's.
Yeah, sure. You talk like you're part of the European Union, which you're not, and you're not part of NATO, never will be. But he still claimed that he wants to be part of NATO. Guys, this is the Leo Zagami Show with Leo and Christy. Buena Vita is our sponsor, Dr. Faro. These are supplements that you can find, of course, at the website of Dr. Faro. Guys, Dr. Faro is an old school gentleman. So you need to call him if you want to get these fantastic supplements.
They're really, really good. Yeah, if we need extra energy, we take it.
Absolutely. And there is both that product, but also BP Espresso, which I want to show our viewers. This is another important product of the Faro collection. Here we are. Let me show it to everybody who is tuned in.
I wanted to say that the espresso powder, you can mix it with almond milk. It's good, and you just mix it in. It mixes very well. And then the strawberry kiwi, you can mix that with water. It's really good. It tastes fresh. It really does. It doesn't have that like fake taste that a lot of the drinks have. I'm really, really picky when it comes to mixes. So I really like this one.
No, it's
pretty phenomenal that I like something.
BP Espresso is an easy mixing, great tasting, and energizing phytonutrient powder mix loaded with certified organic whole food plant extracts. And guys, I tell you, it's very powerful also as an antioxidant. There's a bunch of antioxidants mixed up. And you can always call Dr. Faro. That's the best thing you can do, because Dr. Faro is old school. So to order his products, you have to call him at 863-676-2225. 5.
And if you're in the Lake Wales, Florida area and you're looking for a chiropractor, give Dr. Farrell a call.
And now back to Zelensky.
And we need the same approach when it comes to diplomacy, working together for peace. Ukraine will never accept deals made behind our backs without our involvement. We need a unified foreign policy, a coordinated diplomacy, the foreign policy of common Europe, and let the end of this war be our first shared success in this new reality. And I also will not take NATO membership for Ukraine off the table. But right now, the most influential member...
No, you have to take it off the table because Trump said, and even Hexet and J.D. Vance, there is no NATO for Ukraine.
Of NATO seems to be Putin. Because his whims have the power to block NATO decisions. That's why we are talking about security guarantees. And that's why we believe that the core of any security guarantees for Ukraine must be NATO membership. We cannot just agree to a ceasefire without real security guarantees, without pressure on Russia, without a system to keep Russia in check.
I hope he ends up like Gaddafi or Saddam Hussein.
Flowers
for St. Valentine.
I got chocolate.
Chocolate, yeah? What kind of chocolates are those?
Special ones.
Special ones with THC. Ah, that's nice. That's nice. Very nice.
Flowers. These are my favorite flowers.
Yeah, these are the
Reminds
favorite
me of
flowers.
Japan, so I love these flowers.
Okay, let's go back to the Munich Security Conference where there was also the German foreign minister who had something to say. Why do I want to bring in the German foreign minister? Because she's a very controversial figure, very young. She was accused of sleeping with an escort in Nigeria in 2022.
Oh, nice.
So this woman who some say was herself an escort when she was young. So, I mean, she has a kind of a career, no? And apparently she had something to say about this whole thing. I have it somewhere. I don't know if I can find it.
Oh, come on. You got to find it now.
Yes, I have to find it, but I don't know where. Will I find it? Okay, I find it. Don't worry, guys. Everybody is curious now. Yeah. Well, I mean, yes, it's an existential moment, she said. Let's hear.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to see so many people joining me here today, and I am delighted to introduce the next discussion where we're going to be assessing really Europe's place in the world. In order to do that, I'm delighted to welcome on stage the German Minister for Foreign Affairs, Annalena Baerbock. Please. The UK's Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, as well. Radosław Sikorski, the Minister for Foreign Affairs from Poland. And last but not least, Jean-Noël Barrot, the Minister for Europe and Foreign Affairs from France. All right, I would like to start today's conversation with one comment, and you will understand in just a second why I am bringing this up.
Yeah, me too. Let me show you who this lady is, because there's some pretty heavy accusations against her. A gigolo claims to have entertained German Foreign Minister Baerbock. Let's hope for a prompt denial.
What, that gigolo?
This is a gigolo.
Oh, wow.
Yes, a gigolo has spoken openly about having had paid sexual relations with several powerful European women, including Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock. Yeah, here we are.
Right now, it's not clear whether Europe will even have a seat at the table when the war against our country ends. Will President Trump listen to Europe, or will he negotiate with Russia and China without Europe? Ladies and gentlemen, these words were of President Zelensky just a couple of weeks ago at the World Economic Forum. And here we are today, a 90-minute phone call later, and after a fiery speech by the Vice President of the United States on this stage. So I would like to start the conversation, perhaps getting your thoughts, Minister Baerbock, on how are you feeling about this? So many moving pieces. Do you think that Europe as a continent is facing an existential crisis?
Good afternoon, everybody. Pleasure being here, and thank you all for coming to Munich. Well, this is an existential moment, and it's a moment where Europe has to stand up. And we have showed 3 years ago where everybody underestimated Europe as well, especially the Russian president, thinking that he would just invade Ukraine and everybody would keep in silent, that we didn't repeat the mistake from 2014 before. But we said, now is our answer, that Europe has to be strong and bold, and that we, besides all the differences we have, we stand united. And now, 3 years later, we are at exactly the same moment again. Our answer to others, my nation first, is Europe united. And this is what...
Yeah, united. And remember to continue with your great gigolo. This is the gigolo, eh?
I didn't see it, actually.
That she goes with the gigolo.
I thought you were talking about the first lady and the presenter, and so then I didn't
the
really
man
think
name
that
is
was
Kingsley,
true.
and he once worked as an escort in Kenya. He started this job 5 years ago as a beautiful and wealthy, with a beautiful, it's a beautiful and wealthy French woman.
What?
His clientele.
He started this job. As wait, what?
I don't know. There must be. His clientele
Is he a woman?
includes. No, he's a man. Includes mainly European women who like African men. They like African men. The news was then analyzed by the German news site that has been eliminated.
I'm
of
worried
course.
that was terrible German.
What?
And I'm German, and I don't take any offense to anything that
she's
you
a German minister. I'm not mistaken. We met in Abuja. We met for the first time in December 2022. If I remember correctly, he attended. She was wearing this beautiful purple dress. Think that the people who write these articles in Africa, they need to get the female and the male correct. But in any case, this news was all over the place, and there was never any denial from the foreign minister here.
This is what we have shown in the last couple of days.
Yes, and in the last couple of years, there's no denial for your use of escorts in Africa, my dear. But the news is, guys, we had St. Valentine yesterday, and regarding St. Valentine, because here there is some incredible news I would like to report on the why orgasms are good for health. This is.
I didn't know you were going to report on this.
Yeah, well, I think it's. I mean, it's interesting as we are touching on the subject here. There was an article, still here, yes. Why orgasm good? The reward of climaxing or orgasm are plentiful, from calming your mood to boosting your productivity.
Why do you have to have a blonde there? Okay, I'm getting uncomfortable now.
Okay, and then we have, though, another important news regarding the orgasm. Because,
Can I talk about the news?
No. Yeah, no.
I have a news thing.
No, but this is important and is connected to what I was reading. Democrats introduced legislation to fine men for ejaculation. So that's why I was talking about the orgasm. But good luck to implement this legislation. Democrats introduced legislation to fine men for ejaculating. Two Democratic state representatives in Ohio have introduced legislation that will see men fined for ejaculating if they don't intend on having a baby.
What?
Yeah, this this is real. It sounds insane because it is. The Democratic state.
Oh, that is not real.
No, it's real. Two Democrat state representative Anita Somani and Tristan
Nobody's
Day.
going to agree to that.
Well, what can you do?
That is whatever. Anyway,
The Democrats are always been insane. Now
you
they are
shut up?
touching new levels.
Can you be quiet?
What's up?
Are you going to be quiet?
What is this news that you want to give?
You didn't let me give the news the way I wanted.
So,
to
okay.
I'm going to do my own show. I'm going to do my own news show, and then I don't have to put up with you anymore.
Okay, good luck with that.
I think I would do very well.
Yeah, okay.
If I have my own news show.
Okay.
I can do all the news that's like interesting.
Okay. So what is the next news that you wanted to bring up?
There's like 450. There's a truck driver serial killers, and there's 450 cases of unsolved, and they think it's a serial killer. And
But
there's
it's
all
not
these,
one.
There's all
They
these
think
truck
it is-
drivers, like a bunch of truck drivers,
more than
serial
one.
killers. So I think that's crazy.
Yeah, I saw it actually this morning. But it's like they are thinking that basically a lot of truck drivers, because of their job, can easily rape women and even murder them.
And then they just go to another state. So that's scary.
That's pretty scary, eh?
Be careful when you're on a road trip and you go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
You can never come back.
Oh, wow. In any case, guys, let's close down with Trump. Trump on the EU, he said this yesterday.
You know, we think European Union is wonderful. We all love Europe, love the countries in Europe. But European Union has been absolutely brutal on trade. Canada has been very bad to it.
So, I mean, a firm criticism towards Europe from Donald J. Trump. And then we had Christian Amanpour, who is the most globalist journalist, who interviewed that puppet of Zelensky after he intervened at the Munich Security Conference. And, of course, her questions and the answers that Zelensky gave were pretty pathetic, but this is a guy who, I repeat, is getting more and more desperate by the minute. Yeah, they didn't give this kind of applause to J.D. Vance, but they give it to this comedian turned politician.
Mr. President, thank you. Thank you very much. That was a stem winder of a speech with a lot of challenges thrown down. I want to ask you to expand more on the American piece of this. You, after your phone call with President Trump, said that you did not hear enough detail to make this a peace plan. Can you just elaborate what you meant by that?
Can I speak Ukrainian?
No.
Okay. Don't pressure on me. Okay, so yeah, we had really a long conversation with the President of the United States. Not first one and not last, I'm sure. And I mean, really between us, I'm not sure that by phone we can manage all the plan, all security guarantees with all the details, because, you know, devil in details. Yes, and we know where is this devil, in what country now. Yes, that's why we have to stop him, to stop Putin, and it's very important for me. That's why the atmosphere of our discussion is good, but really it's always good. Yes, but we need urgent, very concrete steps, and I think we have to work on it. Our team.
I mean, he seems to be like more and more desperate. In fact, after a few hours, he was even more desperate. And this is the last of Zelensky for today. But this was, this was even like, this was when he went back to the hotel room and he was even more desperate. Check him out.
Today to European leaders about the need for an armed forces of Europe.
What is the danger?
It's like the cocaine effect is kind of wearing out, and he's thinking maybe he's going to need a few hours of sleep.
To this continent and the world, if they don't listen to your warning and react? And in particular, can you talk to the people of Western Europe who've been lucky enough not to have to worry about war since the end of the Cold War, and have really forgotten that all-of-nation resilience that obviously in Ukraine you know so well?
I hope that our dialogues with leaders, these speeches, and then meetings like the second part of the speeches, yes, to make dialogue basing on very concrete details about EU army or about contingents or about increasing the brigades, not only in Ukraine. I spoke when I spoke about big army, I said that I'm speaking. It's not about our contingents on our territory. Not only about it. I'm speaking about, first of all, your brigades. We know the number of brigades. What you have, mostly in Europe. We understand what does it mean.
It seems to be more and more desperate. Yeah. But what can we do? This guy is about to either end up in a ditch, in a way probably similar to Gaddafi or maybe Saddam Hussein, or either he's gonna realize that he has to give up and finally also let the Ukrainian people decide who is the next president, because canceling elections means being a dictator, and he's a dictator. When he canceled the elections, he doesn't have that democratic mandate. Like J.D. Vance said, you need to have a democratic mandate from your people. Otherwise, you don't have any credibility. So I think that J.D. Vance really broke yesterday all the equilibriums in Europe, and now there is a lot of tension. In fact, Macron apparently, guys, has called for an urgent meeting with all his European allies to talk about what's happening. This was confirmed from Poland. I saw this today, and there is a lot of people around Europe that are very, very worried.
What do you think that, with your expert analysis, what do you think Europe's next move will be?
Well, I think that at this point, I mean, Macron calls for an emergency summit. Macron has a very powerful army compared to all the other European countries. France has probably one of the most strongest armies. Okay. Then you have, of course, the United Kingdom, which is not any longer part of the European Union, but could definitely join Macron. In that case, there will be France, England, France and Great Britain, and maybe other countries that will support boots on the ground. What
about Italy?
But Italy is waiting. We had Giorgia Meloni, who apparently has said she doesn't want to participate to these meetings, and she's kind of waiting a little bit, you know.
Is she still dating Elon?
I don't know, but she's waiting behind the scenes, and it seems uncertain. Even the political future of Giorgia Meloni, there is a lot of criticism for something that happened recently when there was the arrest of this Libyan general, this crook, who apparently then was released, and he's in charge of all the prisons in Libya. And apparently he's also the guy who can push masses of immigrants on the Italian coast, so that's why probably they let them go. Oh. I don't know. But Giorgia Meloni seems to be really, and I read an article this morning on the Italian newspapers, trying to avoid siding with France or Germany or Great Britain, and trying to see if she
can do that. I don't
know, but they are, of course, internally they're criticizing her, saying that she's giving up on a role, on a prominent role on the European stage by doing that. I think she's being rather smart, because at this point, following Zelensky in this desperate war with Russia at all costs means inevitably going towards decline, going towards bankruptcy of the whole continent. And there is no way that Europe can finance a war without the United States against Russia. And just to remind people historically, there was Napoleon who lost with Russia. There was Adolf Hitler who lost with Russia. I don't think that Ursula von der Leyen and those technocrats in Brussels have any chance of winning with Russia. So let's see what happens. Thank you so much. And guys, buona vita, Dr. Faro, but also who was our other sponsors today, aside from...
Daniel Estes and Malgorzata Minta.
Thank you very much. And thanks to Estes, we will have an extra show during the week. It is going to be a very interesting show dedicated to the story of the Inquisition, past, present, and future of the Inquisition. So get ready. And if you want to know more about the subjects, especially the Fourth Reich, European Union as the Fourth Reich. I remember this citation I have here in volume 7 of my Confessions. It says, Germany is trying to turn the EU into a federal German Fourth Reich. And if you want to know more about the Fourth Reich, volume 7 of my Confessions, and of course also volume 9 to know more about Davos and what they are.
You wrote about all of this stuff.
All of this stuff,
amazing.
and how they created artificially the Illuminati in 150 years, the Ukrainian identity, and so on. So thank you so much for being present with us today. Please share this
and tell your friends.
show. Tell your friends. Subscribe to all our channels. And here we go with Medieval by Vincenzo Viceversa, who is also the author of our fantastic book covers. And on top of that, guys, if you want to eat some authentic Italian cooking, remember this book.
The cookbook.
It's the cookbook. That's a Zagami family cookbook. I can guarantee you that you will transform your kitchen in a 5-star restaurant. So between the great cooking you can do with the Zagami family cookbook that you can find on Amazon and Buona Vita by Dr. Faro, you can definitely live a great, healthy life. And see you soon.
And you'll be really smart if you listen to him.
Yeah.
In that time, our world has taken so many steps in the wrong direction.
The Europeans have been kicked in their asses. Great, Jake Vance and Donald J. Trump against these European technocrats and their Illuminati strongholds. Yay!
In the negative utopia, science, technology, social organization, dehumanization. In the negative utopia, science, technology, social organization. Technology, social organization, dehumanization. technology, social organization,